El Dorado wasn't just a Western. It was Howard Hawks remaking his own masterpiece because he could, a screenwriter's private hell writing the same story twice, the only on-screen pairing of two Hollywood titans who defined masculinity for generations, and a film that resurrected a retired cinematographer from 8 years of peace just to shoot one last picture before disappearing forever. Behind the Arizona dust and gunfighter swagger lay a production where the legendary screenwriter who would later write The Empire Strikes Back felt physically sick rewriting her own work, where James Caan wore 3-inch lifts to look taller, where John Wayne's 138th film was deliberately buried by his own studio to protect Steve McQueen, and where an artist's paintings became more famous than his lifetime of actual artwork. What audiences saw as effortless chemistry between two aging icons was actually a director ruthlessly recycling his greatest hits, while his screenwriter suffered creative agony watching her best work cannibalized. Today, we're riding into the sunset to reveal 15 weird facts about El Dorado, and stick around for a bonus fact about the footage that lived on long after Wayne himself died. Number 15. The screenwriter who hated remakes. Lee Brackett wrote the original script for El Dorado, and she described it as the best script I had ever done in my life. It wasn't tragic, but it was one of those things where Wayne died at the end. But as production neared, something terrible happened. The more we got into doing Rio Bravo over again, she said, the sicker I got, because I hate doing things over again. And I kept saying to Howard I did that, and he'd say it was okay, we could do it over again. This was creative torture for Brackett. She was being forced to rewrite her own masterpiece, Rio Bravo, 1959, stripping away the original tragic ending where Wayne's character dies and instead delivering essentially the same story with different character names. The woman who would go on to write the first draft of The Empire Strikes Back and who had co-written The Big Sleep with William Faulkner was literally making herself ill watching Hawks recycle their previous triumph. Hawks had created a formula he loved: a tough sheriff, a drunk deputy, a young hothead, an old-timer, all trapped defending against overwhelming odds, and he simply refused to let it go. For Brackett, it felt like artistic betrayal, watching her best original work cannibalized. Yet she couldn't refuse Howard Hawks, the man who had launched her Hollywood career. As she ruefully admitted, "You know, the guy that signs the final check has the final say." Number 14. Wayne and Mitchum's only screen pairing. Despite being two of the biggest stars in Hollywood history and defining masculine archetypes for generations, John Wayne and Robert Mitchum appeared together in only one film, El Dorado. This remains one of the most surprising facts in classic Hollywood. These two titans of tough guy cinema, contemporaries who ruled the 1950s and 60s, never shared the screen before or after this single collaboration. They had both appeared in The Longest Day, 1962, but in completely separate storylines with no shared scenes. El Dorado gave audiences the pairing they'd been waiting for: Wayne's straight-arrow gunfighter and Mitchum's alcoholic sheriff, creating an odd couple dynamic that crackled with weary charisma. The chemistry works because both actors understood restraint. Neither grandstands or scene steals. They simply exist as men who've lived hard lives, delivering Hawks' dialogue with lived-in weariness. Mitchum later recalled Hawks' pitch: "When Howard called me, I said, 'What is the story?' And he said, 'No story, just characters.' And that's the way it was. Did one scene, put it away. Did another, put it away." That approach perfectly suited both actors, professionals showing up, doing the work, going home. No method acting, no ego battles, just two masters practicing their craft. The fact that this chemistry existed in only one film makes El Dorado more precious. It's the sole document of what these two legends could create together. Number 13. Paramount buried its own film. El Dorado was actually Wayne's 138th picture and was filmed before The War Wagon, but its release was deliberately delayed so that Paramount's Nevada Smith starring Steve McQueen wouldn't have to compete with a John Wayne film at the box office. The studio essentially buried one of its own films to protect another, gambling that McQueen needed the boost more than Wayne. This created an absurd release schedule. El Dorado was shot from October 1965 to January 1966 and was ready for theaters. But Paramount pushed it back, first releasing it in Japan on December 17, 1966, where it found an enthusiastic audience. American audiences didn't see it until June 7, 1967, nearly a year and a half after production wrapped and a full month after The War Wagon, which was shot later, had already opened. The strategy reveals how studios view their assets. McQueen was the hot young star, unpredictable and temperamental, while Wayne was the reliable workhorse who'd been delivering hits for decades. Paramount calculated they could afford to delay Wayne's film because he'd be back with another one soon enough. The gamble paid off commercially. Nevada Smith performed respectably, and El Dorado still grossed $12 million against its modest budget when it finally reached theaters. But the delay demonstrated how even major stars like Wayne were pawns in studio marketing strategies. Your film could be finished, acclaimed, and ready, but if the accountants decided another property needed protecting, you waited. Number 12. The Wizard returns from retirement. Cinematographer Harold Rawson had retired in 1958 after shooting Onionhead, ending a remarkable career that included The Wizard of Oz, 1939, Singin' in the Rain, 1952, and The Asphalt Jungle, 1950. He was done. 8 years of peaceful retirement had passed when Howard Hawks personally persuaded him to come back for one final film. Rawson agreed, dragging himself out of retirement at Hawks' request to shoot El Dorado in gorgeous Technicolor across Arizona and Utah. The cinematographer who had shot Dorothy's Journey to Oz now captured Wayne and Mitchum's trek across the desert. His work on El Dorado shows he hadn't lost his touch. The film glows with golden hour magic, the Arizona landscapes looking both majestic and harsh. After completing El Dorado, Rawson resumed his retirement permanently. He never shot another frame of film, living peacefully until his death in 1988 at 93. El Dorado stands as his final statement, the last work of a master cinematographer who came out of retirement for one friend and one film, then disappeared back into the quiet life he'd earned. Hawks must have been enormously persuasive, or Rawson must have owed him a significant favor to pull off this resurrection. The film bears the hallmarks of classic Hollywood craftsmanship that was already fading by 1966, a testament to both Rawson's skill and Hawks' ability to call in favors from the very best. Number 11. Empire Strikes Back Writer's Western. Lee Brackett, who wrote El Dorado, would go on to write the first draft of The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, making her one of the most versatile screenwriters in Hollywood history. Known as the Queen of Space Opera for her science fiction novels, Brackett moved effortlessly between genres, noir, The Big Sleep, westerns, Rio Bravo, El Dorado, Rio Lobo, and space fantasy Empire. George Lucas hired her in 1977 specifically because of her science fiction writing, not initially realizing she'd written some of Hollywood's greatest westerns. When they met, according to legend, Lucas mentioned her sci-fi credentials and Brackett replied, "Yes, I have. Rio Bravo, El Dorado, The Big Sleep, The Long Goodbye." Lucas was shocked. He'd hired a pulp sci-fi legend who also happened to be one of Hollywood's top screenwriters. Brackett delivered her first draft of Empire in February 1978, weeks before she died of cancer. Though Lucas and Lawrence Kasdan rewrote extensively, key story beats and character dynamics from Brackett's draft survived. The DNA of El Dorado, the banter between mismatched allies, the grizzled mentor, the young hothead learning wisdom, flows directly into Empire. Han Solo and Leia's combative romance echoes Brackett's Western couples. Luke's training with Yoda mirrors the young gunfighter learning from the old master. Brackett understood that genre doesn't matter. Character dynamics and sharp dialogue work anywhere, whether in 1880s Texas or a galaxy far, far away. Number 10. Hawks' Shameless Self remake. El Dorado is the second film in what became Howard Hawks' unofficial sheriff trilogy, following Rio Bravo, 1959, and preceding Rio Lobo, 1970. All three tell essentially the same story. A tough sheriff, a drunk deputy or friend, a young hothead, and an old-timer defend their position against overwhelming odds. The plotlines are similar enough that El Dorado and Rio Lobo qualify as remakes, though Hawks always denied this. The parallels are unmistakable. Rio Bravo featured Wayne as the sheriff, Dean Martin as the alcoholic deputy dude, Ricky Nelson as the young gunfighter, and Walter Brennan as the crusty old-timer Stumpy. El Dorado swaps the roles. Now Wayne is the gunfighter. Robert Mitchum plays the alcoholic sheriff. James Caan takes the young hothead role, and Arthur Honeycutt replaces Brennan. Same character types, same dynamics, same basic plot structure. Critics noticed immediately. Some praised Hawks for perfecting his formula. Others accused him of creative bankruptcy and laziness. Hawks didn't care. He'd found a story structure he loved, male friendship tested under fire, professionals doing their jobs, grace under pressure, and he wanted to explore it from different angles. He was remaking himself, yes, but he was doing it well. Roger Ebert called El Dorado a tightly directed, humorous, altogether successful Western, turned out almost effortlessly, it would seem, by three old pros. And let's face it, go ahead and like and subscribe because the remaining facts reveal secrets even the biggest Wayne fans don't know about this production. Number 9. James Caan's 3-inch secret. James Caan has openly admitted he wore 3-inch lifts throughout the filming of El Dorado to appear taller alongside the towering John Wayne, who stood 6 feet 4 inches. This was Caan's first major film role, and he was painfully aware of the height disparity between himself and the Duke. The lifts helped, but they also made walking, running, and fighting more difficult. Every action scene required Caan to maintain balance on elevated shoes while pretending to move naturally. The character of Mississippi, with his shotgun and youthful bravado, became Caan's breakout role. His performance caught Hollywood's attention, leading to The Godfather 6 years later. But on the El Dorado set, he was just a young actor trying not to look ridiculous next to Wayne and Mitchum. The 3-inch lifts represent old Hollywood's image obsession. Every detail of how actors appeared on screen mattered. Modern audiences watching El Dorado have no idea Caan is standing on risers, testament to how well the illusion worked. It also reveals the insecurity young actors felt working with legends. Caan knew one misstep could end his career before it started. The lifts, the preparation, the intensity he brought to Mississippi all paid off. Hawks hired him again for Redline 7000 1965, and the trajectory towards superstardom was set, all because a kid was willing to wear uncomfortable shoes and hold his own against two of cinema's most intimidating presences. Number 8. Mitchum's bathtub improvisation. Robert Mitchum largely invented the film's memorable bathtub scene, where his character J.P. Hara soaks in a tub while plotting strategy. This wasn't scripted. Mitchum suggested it to Hawks, who loved the idea and incorporated it. The scene became iconic, showing Hara as both vulnerable, naked, injured, and strategically sharp, planning the next move while literally exposed. This exemplifies Hawks' collaborative approach. He trusted his actors to bring ideas, especially pros like Mitchum, who understood character instinctively. Mitchum knew that showing the sheriff in a bathtub, undignified, human, nursing wounds, would make him more compelling than another scene of him sitting behind a desk. The vulnerability works. We see Hera's injured leg propped up, his exhaustion, his determination. Hawks shot it simply, letting Mitchum's natural charisma carry the scene. The bathtub moment became one of viewers' favorite scenes, frequently cited when people discuss the film. It shows a different kind of masculinity than Wayne's gunfighter projects. Mitchum's sheriff is broken, drinking, struggling, yet still fighting. The juxtaposition between Wayne's competence and Mitchum's barely functional determination creates the film's emotional engine. That Mitchum improvised this vulnerable moment demonstrates his understanding of character far beyond the script's requirements. Number 7. Olaf Weghorst's opening credits. The opening credits feature a montage of original paintings by Western artist Olaf Weghorst depicting various scenes of cowboy life. Weghorst wasn't just the artist. He appears in the film as Swede Larsson, the gunsmith. This dual contribution made him an integral part of El Dorado's aesthetic, his artwork literally framing the story before audiences meet the characters. Weghorst was a renowned Western painter whose work captured authentic cowboy life rather than Hollywood romanticism. His paintings show working cowboys, real horses, genuine landscapes, art grounded in his own experience as a cowboy, soldier, and rancher before becoming an artist. Hawks chose Weghorst's paintings because they communicated authenticity. The credits don't feel like typical Hollywood gloss. They look like historical documents inviting viewers into a world that feels lived in before the action starts. Weghorst's brief appearance as the gunsmith reinforces this authenticity. He wasn't an actor playing a craftsman. He was a genuine Western man playing a role close to his real identity. His presence, like Rawson's cinematography and Nelson Riddle's score, represents Hawks' commitment to craftsmanship. Everything in El Dorado was made by masters of their respective crafts, from the screenwriter to the cinematographer to the opening credits artist. That level of quality, now rare in franchise-dominated Hollywood, gives the film timeless appeal. Number 6. Wayne's 138th picture milestone. El Dorado was John Wayne's 138th film, an almost incomprehensible number that demonstrates the Duke's incredible work ethic and dominance of American cinema. By 1966, Wayne had been appearing in movies for 36 years, averaging nearly 4 films per year throughout his career. He was a machine, cranking out westerns, war films, and the occasional comedy with relentless consistency. This milestone means Wayne had more experience than almost anyone in Hollywood history. He knew every trick, every shortcut, every way to make a scene work. Younger actors like James Caan watched in awe as Wayne effortlessly hit marks, delivered lines perfectly on first takes, and maintained energy through long shooting days. For Hawks, directing Wayne by this point was less about instruction and more about collaboration, two old pros who spoke the same language. Wayne's stamina was legendary. He'd show up at dawn, shoot all day in Arizona heat, and still have energy for card games at night. At 59, he was in his prime as a screen presence even as his body was beginning to fail. The cancer that would eventually kill him was already growing, though undiagnosed. His comfort with horses, guns, and Western settings was absolute. He moved through El Dorado's world as if born to it. This exhaustive filmography meant Wayne could phone in performances, but he rarely did. El Dorado shows him still caring, still present, still the Duke. Number 5. The Edgar Allan Poe Connection. The poem repeated throughout the film and paraphrased in the theme song is El Dorado, a ballad poem by Edgar Allan Poe written in 1849. The poem tells of a knight searching for the legendary city of gold, finding only a shadow who directs him over the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow. It's a meditation on impossible dreams and mortality, themes that resonate throughout the film. Hawke's decision to incorporate Poe creates unexpected literary depth. This isn't just a shoot-'em-up western, it's a film about aging men pursuing fading dreams in a harsh world. Cole Thornton, Wayne, is searching for his own El Dorado, a place to belong, a life beyond violence. The Poe poem suggests that search is futile, that the valley of the shadow, death, is the only destination. Yet the film offers something Poe doesn't: friendship as its own reward. If there's no El Dorado, no paradise waiting, then the bonds between men become all that matters. The poem adds melancholy to Hawks's typical action framework. We're watching men running out of time, grabbing a few more moments of purpose before age and death claim them. Nelson Riddle's score incorporates the Poe poem into the theme song, weaving the literary reference throughout. This elevates El Dorado above typical 1960s westerns, giving it philosophical weight that justifies its critical reputation. Number 4. Nelson Riddle's iconic score. Composer Nelson Riddle, best known for arranging Frank Sinatra's greatest recordings and composing the iconic Batman TV theme, created the musical score for El Dorado. Riddle brought sophisticated jazz sensibilities to the Western genre, his orchestrations giving the film a modern sound that contrasted with traditional cowboy movie music. Riddle was one of the greatest arrangers in American popular music, and his work on El Dorado demonstrates his versatility. The main theme incorporates Poe's El Dorado poem, but Riddle's arrangement avoids schmaltz, instead delivering a melancholy, searching melody that underscores the character's weariness. The action cues have propulsive energy without overwhelming the drama. During quiet scenes, Riddle's score recedes, letting dialogue breathe. This restraint was Hawke's philosophy: never let music tell audiences how to feel. Riddle understood, providing emotional support without manipulation. His work earned critical praise but no awards, typical for film composers whose contributions are underappreciated. Modern viewers encountering El Dorado often cite Riddle's score as one reason it feels less dated than other 1960s westerns. The music has jazz sophistication that ages better than traditional western orchestration. Riddle's career spanned from big band era to 1980s pop, but his film work, particularly El Dorado, shows his ability to serve story rather than showcasing technique. Number 3. Mitchum's no-story philosophy. When asked what the story of El Dorado was about, Robert Mitchum famously replied, "When Howard called me, I said, 'What is the story?' And he said, 'No story, just characters.' And that's the way it was. Did one scene, put it away, did another, put it away." This encapsulates Hawks' approach to filmmaking: character over plot, moment over structure, vibe over narrative coherence. Hawks believed good actors creating interesting characters would naturally generate compelling scenes, and if you strung enough compelling scenes together, story would emerge organically. This anti-structure philosophy terrified screenwriters like Brackett, who preferred tight plotting, but it suited actors like Mitchum perfectly. Mitchum didn't need motivation or backstory. He just showed up and was. His J.P. Hara feels fully realized despite minimal exposition because Mitchum imbued every scene with lived experience. This approach works when you have masters collaborating. Hawks, Wayne, Mitchum, and Caan were all professionals who understood their roles instinctively. No one needed handholding or endless takes. The no story, just characters philosophy produces El Dorado's rambling, episodic structure. It's less a tight narrative than a hangout movie. spending time with interesting people facing challenges. Some critics found this aimless. Others recognized it as Hawke's mature style, confident enough to let scenes breathe rather than forcing momentum. Number 2. The film within the film. Footage from El Dorado was later incorporated into the opening montage of John Wayne's final film, The Shootist, 1976, to illustrate the backstory of Wayne's character, J.B. Books, a legendary gunfighter dying of cancer. Director Don Siegel used clips from El Dorado and other Wayne films to create a visual history of Book's violent career, making El Dorado part of Wayne's cinematic epitaph. This creates a metatextual loop. Wayne's character in The Shootist is himself, an aging gunfighter facing mortality, played by an aging actor dying of cancer. Siegel deliberately chose footage only from films made after 1948, ensuring the clips showed the older Wayne audiences new. El Dorado scenes appear prominently, making Cole Thornton part of J.B. Book's fictional past. The irony is profound. A film where Wayne played a character trying to escape violence becomes part of the montage for a character defined by violence. El Dorado, Hawke's meditation on aging professionals, flows directly into the Shootist's meditation on death itself. Wayne would die 3 years after The Shootist, making that film's use of El Dorado footage even more poignant. His cinematic legacy was literally constructed from his previous roles, past performances echoing into his final one. This wasn't just clever editing, it was acknowledgement that Wayne's entire career had built toward that final moment. Number 1. The three-film sheriff formula. El Dorado cemented Howard Hawks' obsession with a specific story formula that he would return to 3 times. Rio Bravo, 1959, El Dorado, 1966, and Rio Lobo, 1970. All starred John Wayne in essentially the same role, all featured the same character types, and all explored male friendship under fire. Hawke spent 11 years perfecting variations on this single story. Critics have debated for decades whether this represents artistic obsession or creative bankruptcy. Hawke's defenders argue he was exploring different aspects of the same thematic material, like a jazz musician playing variations on a standard. Detractors call it shameless self-plagiarism. The truth is both. Hawke found a story structure that embodied his worldview: professionalism, grace under pressure, male camaraderie, competence as virtue, and he wanted to examine it from every angle. Each film has different tonal qualities. Rio Bravo is the most confident and playful. El Dorado is more elegiac and world-weary. Rio Lobo is tired and unfocused, Hawke's final statement made when he was 74. But all three share the core belief that friendship between men matters more than victory or defeat. The sheriff may win or lose, but if his friends stand with him, he's succeeded. This philosophy resonated with audiences across 3 films and 11 years, making Hawke's formula not just repetitive, but archetypal. He created a myth he believed in, then retold it until he got it exactly right. Bonus fact: Christopher George's repeat performance. John Wayne was so impressed by Christopher George's performance as Nels McLeod, the villain with a moral code, that he told George during filming he would work with him again. Wayne kept his word, hiring George for Chisholm, 1970, and The Train Robbers, 1973. This marked George as one of the few actors Wayne personally requested for multiple films. George's McLeod isn't a mustache-twirling villain, he's a professional gunfighter who respects Cole Thornton as a peer. The scene where McLeod offers professional courtesy before they face off demonstrates the code of honor Hawks loved depicting. Even enemies can respect each other when both are competent. George played the role with cool intelligence, making McLeod a worthy adversary rather than a thug. Wayne recognized quality when he saw it, and, as one of the most powerful stars in Hollywood, had the clout to request specific actors. His endorsement launched George into A-list Western supporting roles throughout the early 1970s, appearing alongside Duke in some of his final Westerns. This represents old Hollywood's mentorship culture. Stars like Wayne actively promoted talented actors they enjoyed working with. George's career thrived because one of cinema's biggest icons noticed his work and decided to reward it. That personal touch, where reputation and talent mattered more than agents and deals, defined the era. Wayne's 3 films with George represent the Duke's final years, making George a witness to the end of an empire. El Dorado endures not as Hawke's greatest film, but as his most honest admission that he'd found perfection and refused to abandon it. Its legacy is complicated. Critics who praised Rio Bravo called this a tired retread, yet audiences loved watching Wayne and Mitchum trade world-weary dialogue. The film exists in the shadow of its predecessor while containing moments that surpass it.